Good evening, you're watching To The Point. I'm Preeti Chaudhary. On the 3rd of October, the Lakhimpur incident had taken place. An SIT was put in action to investigate. It's been over a month, there is no charge sheet. 3 days ago, the Supreme Court slammed the Uttar Pradesh government on what they said was a probe that they did not believe in. This was the Supreme Court. Today, or rather yesterday, the forensic report has come out it's a ballistic report of the arms that were found, and that is linked. Tenny's son, the sitting MOS Home son, Ajay Kumar Tenny's son, Ashish Kumar Tenny's arm was fired. He maintains that he's not fired the arm for a year. What's the story? Here's more. The politics, the blame game, the trust deficit and the investigation. As the Lakhimpur sore festers, fresh evidence has emerged that could further implicate Ashish Mishra, the son of sitting MOS home, Ajay Kumar Mishra, accused of mowing down a group of farmers in cold blood in Lakhimpur Kheri on the 3rd of October. A forensic report has confirmed that weapons recovered from Union Minister Ajay Mishra's son, Ashish Mishra, and others after the Lakhimpur violence had been fired. However, the analysis could not ascertain whether the gun was fired on the day of the Lakhimpur violence. There were cartridges which were found in the Thar jeep that mowed down farmers. The forensic report of the cartridges, if they match the firearm, is still awaited. What is to note here is that the defense of Ajay Mishra and he himself has maintained that he has not fired from his weapon in 1 full year. The forensic report contradicts that claim. Moreover, the empty cartridges found in the jeep will add to circumstantial evidence, and the onus to prove that the arm was not fired on the day of the incident will now lie with the accused. The scathing forensic report comes along with the kin of the reporter who was killed in the incident, saying there was a plot to misconstrue the journalist's death as death by lynching, while the actual cause of death was that he was mowed down by a car. The family has now approached a district court over the local police refusing to register an FIR against Ajay Kumar Tenny for murder.
ये ऐसा जो हमारी FIR नहीं दर्ज हुई है, तब मजबूरी में हमें कोर्ट का दरवाजा खटखटाना पड़ा है, इसलिए हमने कल जो है 56-3 में 14 लोगों को नामजद किया है।
कुछ ये भी जानकारी मिल रही कि गृह राज्य मंत्री जी का भी उसमें?
जी हाँ, उनका भी नाम है, चूँकि मुझे बाद में पता चला कि गाड़ी उन्हीं के नाम पर थी, इसलिए मैंने उनका भी नाम दिया।
तो आपको क्या लगता है कि इसमें जो जांच की जाएगी, इस पर आपको विश्वास है? कोर्ट
विश्वास के अलावा और कुछ कर भी नहीं सकते हैं, बस ये देखना है कि कब तक न्याय मिलता है।
All of this in the backdrop of the Supreme Court slamming the UP government of what the apex court felt was mishandling of the probe, that the Supreme Court did not have faith in the SIT investigation being conducted by the state. The court went on to state that it was trying to appoint a retired judge from a different high court to monitor investigations on a day-to-day basis. The highest court in the country stated that it did not want a judicial commission appointed by the state of Uttar Pradesh to continue. While the Lakhimpur incident has become a political flashpoint 4 months before UP elections, the SIT is yet to file a charge sheet, even 1 month after the incident. One can only hope the 8 lives lost get justice and don't fall collateral to state politics. Bureau Report, India Today. So, Veer, should an independent probe now be ordered, because the forensic report that has come out pretty much indicts Ajay Mishra Tenny's son, Ashish Mishra. I want to cut across right now to our panelists. I have Anila Singh, spokesperson Bharatiya Janata Party, Vikram Singh, former DGP Uttar Pradesh, Gurdeep Sappal, spokesperson Congress. You know, if our political analysts will allow, I want to cut across to the former DGP, Mr. Singh first, and get a larger understanding, Mr. Singh. What can we make at the back of the forensic report, which pretty much indicts Ashish Mishra, where it says that that weapon that he used was fired from, when he has maintained that for 1 year he has not used that weapon. What is the time frame of a forensic report Mr. Singh, which can implicate someone, say that it was during the same time frame when this incident took place?
Preeti, you may recall that there have been series of statements coming from the father and son, and all of them contradict each other. In the face of this, it is not surprising that Ashish says that he has not used the weapon for the last 12 months. And if that be the case, he has to jolly well explain that the empties have the mark of the firing pin on the cartridges and the fire, and that is incontrovertible evidence, mind you. Then, if he leased out his weapon to some other person and who fired it, even that is an offense under the Arms Act. That does not solve matters for him. Also, if somebody else used the weapon on his behalf or misused his weapon, whatever be the case, he did not lodge an FIR to the extent that somebody misused his weapon. Even then, he has a lot of experience to do for the police. The fact of the matter is, somebody used the weapon. And it can always be ascertained from the presence of the gunpowder in the empties to duration and to what could be the possible age of the used empty shell found in the car or wherever.
That's the question I want to ask. I'm sorry to come in, Mr. Singh. That's the question when I want to ask. The presence of gunpowder has confirmed that the firearm was used recently. What is the time frame of recently in a forensic report?
Well, if it is recent, it is by presumption and by implication. Surely you did not go on a poaching expedition or you go for a trial shoot or something. The presumption is very obvious that you use it at the scene of crime. And in the scene of crime, there are multiple videos surfacing, people saying, you may recall, that goli chal rahi. If that be the goli chal rahi, an expert gunsmith and an expert firearm handler will tell you whether it was a shotgun, whether it was a rifle, whether it was a close quarter battle weapon. And therefore, these evidence, when pieced up, a skillful investigator can come down to a conclusion and narrow down what weapon, whether it was a repeater, as it is alleged in this case, it was a repeater, or a short-range weapon. In any case, the cartridge being recovered, the son denying that he wasn't there at the spot, and there are eyewitnesses, as they say in the police language, Samai Shahadat, that is what you have heard, and Chashwadeed Shahadat, that is the eyewitness, what they have said. On the basis of the video evidence and those on the spot and other contributory evidence, I don't think it is rocket science to get to the bottom of what the truth is. And I think it's better, and my advice would be to come out with the truth, because a skillful investigator will expose
Mr. Singh, I want to ask you two very quick questions before I go across to Ms. Singh and Mr. Sapal. And my question is, sir, that cartridges have been found. The fact that there is a correlation between the cartridges, whether they belong to the same firearm, is yet to be established. That report is awaited. But the empty cartridges found in the same Jeep where the firearms were taken, can that attribute to circumstantial evidence? Number one. Number two, is the onus now to prove that Mishra did not use the firearm on the day of violence on him now?
Obviously, the answer to the first question is that if the cartridges were recently fired, the presumption is very obvious when were they recently fired. Recent would obviously mean that probably, in all probability, they were used during the course of the incident, because there was a firing incident. It's a different matter that the dead bodies did not have entry and exit wounds or did not even have a gunshot wound. But three scenarios emerged: fired in self-defense, fired in the air, fired on Ashish's behalf.
Right.
In any case, even it was fired on Ashish's behalf, even then he has a lot of explaining to do. And then the police, Ashish, it does not help matters if somebody else fired on Ashish's behalf, because Arms Act does not allow any proxy or anybody else to use my weapon.
All right, appreciate you joining us, sir. I want to cut across right now to Anila Singh and Mr. Sapal. Anila Singh, the fact is, the forensic report which has come out indicts directly Mr. Ashish Mishra. Now, let's just go back to what the Supreme Court says. To quote the Supreme Court, the highest court of this country doesn't believe or doesn't have confidence in the SIT that you're conducting. Is it time for an independent probe, ma'am?
See, I do not want to comment anything on Honorable Supreme Court, and whatever Supreme Court has said about the probe, that must be in the right sense, absolutely. With all due respect to Supreme Court, whatever they want, whatever instructions they want to give to Uttar Pradesh government is definitely going to entertain that. But at the same time, I can say this, that it is a high-profile case, and if you talk about the SIT investigation or the judicial probe which is going on under the retired High Court judge, if we talk about that too as well, I think nobody can take this case for granted, and nobody can show his or her bias towards anyone, because it is so highlighted case. And when we have a chief minister like Yogi Adityanath ji, who doesn't entertain any type of person, people, or incident which leads to take the law in his or her own hands, then one should have trust and confidence that the probe will be very fair, and the accused or the people who are involved in this unfortunate incident, they are behind the bars, or they will be behind the bars, and the exemplary punishment to be given is in the hands of the judicial system of our country. So nobody can say this thing that the UP government is not doing right. Definitely they are doing right, and they are doing right.
The Supreme Court says
investigation
that
as well.
the Supreme Court, in the harshest word, has criticized the probe that is being conducted.
That is why I said that I'm not going to say anything what Honorable Supreme Court has said, but I can definitely say what my government is doing.
Okay.
We know it very well. I mean, the Fosnick report has come out. There is no, nobody can say this thing that anybody has played wrongfully with the report. That is why we are discussing today.
All right. Okay. Mrs. Sapar, you know, Ms. Anila Singh has just made a point that if we were conducting a botched probe, then the forensic report would not have indicted Mishra's son.
I think this is one case which I agree is a high-profile case, where there's a mountain of evidence available to everyone to see, for everyone to see. Everyone actually knows what happened there. Now what we are doing is we are seeing the UP government trying to find some way to let its people out. And why I'm saying that? Yesterday, what did Supreme Court say? Day before yesterday, it said UP government arrested 13 people. 13 people. Out of 12, it said did not carry mobile phones. And why did it say, the SIT said that they did not carry mobile phones? Because mobile phone is one instrument by which you can actually not only pinpoint the location, but the conversations, the call record of mobile phone also proves the background to the incident. And here is a case, it's a high profile case, and the UP government's SIT and UP government's advocate in the Supreme Court have the guts to tell Supreme Court that in today's day and age, 12 out of 13 people were not using mobile phones. So this is the level of investigation which is happening, and that is why not just we, but Supreme Court, but also the family of the BJP worker who was killed in that incident have expressed their dissatisfaction in the investigation being carried out by BJP government, and they've asked the investigation to be carried out of SIT. So this is something that, you see, I can only remind myself a song, a famous Hindi song, ki honi ko anhoni kar de, anhoni ko honi. This is what the SIT under Yogi government is trying to do in UP, and this is expected. This is expected because when the prime accused father, whose car was used in the incident, continues to be the Home Minister, MOS Home of Modi government, then this is what is expected from the SIT. And this is why we have been demanding that the MOS Home, Mr. Ashish Mishra, must resign. MOS Home has to resign to allow the inquiry to be impartial. This is the minimum demand which any law-abiding or any person having any sense will make in this country today.
All right, two things, Anila Singh, and I'll bring up each one at a time. Number one, the incident occurred on the 3rd of October. The SIT was set up immediately after that. It's been over a month. There's no charge sheet in the case, number one. Number two, I'd like to ask you is, the journalist who was dead in the violence, now in the beginning, there was a narrative which was woven that he died or he was killed due to lynching. However, his family has come out and said that this is a man, the journalist who had died due to being mowed down by a car. Moreover, the family says that the local police station is refusing to register an FIR. We want to register an FIR of murder against Ashish Mishra Teni and his father, who is the sitting MOS Home, Ajay Mishra, because the car belonged to him.
Firstly, like you asked about the SIT team, that this incident. Yes, please. Like this unfortunate incident happened on 3rd of October, and immediately a SIT team was made for the investigation. But as I mentioned earlier, this is one high-profile case, very highlighted case, and I think the team is also under the magnifying glass that what the team is doing. So they have to go into details. I mean, initially, I remember very well when Ashish Mishra was not arrested, like everybody was after the SIT and the UP police that why Ashish Mishra is not getting arrested since, I mean, there are so many proofs that his vehicle was there and, I mean, so many things were said about, but he was arrested. So I just want to say here that we have to have trust. We have to have confidence in the team.
But Ms. Singh, okay, you're saying the charge sheet is going to take time, but in any normal case, and I'm sure we have the former DGP here who will say if there's a road rage accident or there is an accident on the road, if a child is driving and the car is in the name of the father is arrested immediately. But having said that, that's a different conversation. I want to come back to you, Ms. Singh, and I want to ask you on what the family of the kin of the journalists say. They are saying that they are under duress. They can't lodge an FIR in the local police station. The police is refusing to lodge an FIR against the sitting Home Minister and his son.
Preeti, as the law states, section 154 of the CRPC says, if the contents of the application disclose the commission of a cognizable offence, the station officer shall, the word used is shall and not will, shall register the FIR, and there is no discretion with the SHO. I'm sure the complainant must have made repeated attempts to lodge the FIR, but taking into account the so-called high-profile case, it will be an Herculean. That is why he has taken the route of 156 subsection 3 of the Criminal Procedure Code and has gone to the court. Well, as the law states, his FIR should have been lodged. But also it can be said when one FIR has been lodged, a second FIR after a lapse of so much of lucid interval cannot be permitted. That FIR, what we can do is to incorporate your application during the course of this investigation, and if the allegations are borne out, we will register a fresh case. That also is a possibility.
All right, Ms. Singh, I want to come back to you then. So when all of this is going down, when FIRs are not getting registered, when people are not, stepping down from a position, even though they are directly indicted, where the MOS Home's name is directly indicted in this, then there is no faith in an SIT.
See, in that way we can say that we not only we say that we have seen opposition parties, especially they say that they don't have any faith in Supreme Court, they don't have faith in Election Commission, they don't have faith in judicial system. So in that way, you can say that we don't have faith in anything.
But the Supreme Court says we don't have faith in your SIT.
So let the Supreme Court instruct the UP government that what UP government has to do.
All right,
UP government, according to government, they are doing the fair job.
Fair enough, okay.
And
all right, fair enough, because that's what happened in Hathras. It started off with an SIT, then the CBI took it over, and the court say in the next hearing they will look at appointing an external judge to overlook proceedings. But Mr. Suppal, you want to make a point, but I want to ask you a counter question. If the Congress hadn't politicized the issue, would you have thought that those 8 people would have gotten justice earlier?
Well, I object to the use of word politicization. What in a democracy is the role of a political party? If there's anything wrong done to any citizen of this country, it is the duty of the political parties to stand by them, to fight with them, fight for their rights. This is what Congress party did. How can anyone object it and make politicization a bad word in a democracy? This is undoing the democracy itself in a country. And I would like to remind Ms. Anila that everybody has conveniently forgotten in BJP that the very first FIR also contains the name of the father Ajay Mishra, who is MOS Home. Why are we not talking about him? As long as he remains MOS Home, and as long as he remains MOS Home, every single citizen in this country knows that inquiry will not take its own right course. So this is the primary thing. If Modi government has not lost every bit of morality, then the resignation of MOS Home is a must.
All right, gentlemen, and Ms. Singh, I appreciate all 3 of you for joining us. Well, I would reckon right now the spotlight is going to be on the Supreme Court, because the hearing is continuing in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has said that they are looking at appointing an external judge to overlook day-to-day proceedings, because it doesn't. The top court in this country doesn't have faith in the investigation which is being conducted in the Lakhimpur violence. Only after that has the forensic report come out, which in a way indicts the man arrested, Ashish Mishra. With that, a quick break. To stay with us. Up next is Rahul Kanwar.